Another Xbox One motherboard. Let's see. Now, I remember when I first originally put notes for this, the disk drive wasn't reading disks, but when I tested it before I took it apart, it seemed to do okay. There's some thermal paste I should probably chip off this heat spreader before I get too far ahead of myself. But when I put it together, I'll test it again. If it tested fine before I took it apart, I'm fairly confident it will stay fine. Give the motherboard a quick once over. See if there's anything I need to change or wipe off. Other than a little bit of dust and some more thermal paste, I think, or a little bit of crunchy thermal paste, I think it looks good. Let me get the APU all goobered up. I feel like I've done a lot of Xbox Ones in a row, and I guess that means I'm getting pretty good at them. Ended up kind of overbuying the amount of Xboxes I had. Started off with just a couple, and then I ended up just having a ton of them. There we go. It'll be nice just to reduce my stock down to just fixed and cleaned ones, instead of just a bunch of broken ones. Well, most of them just needed a good cleaning. Just needed a little bit of TLC. Now the X clamp the little oval goes into the direction of the numbers on the silk screen. I clip this one or do I need my tool? I need my tool for this one. Help it on a little. There we go. X clamp is clamping. Grab the metal shielding. I need to flip it over. Grab my screws. Wednesday looks like the X-clamp screws. And the perk of doing all of these consoles all at once is I know where screws go. So it makes putting these things back together very easily. I'm not having to reference a guide every single time if I do a bunch of different consoles at once. I think after this I only have about 4 more usable Xboxes. I have one right off camera that the only thing it needed was just a good cleaning. Person I bought it from decided that they didn't want these Xboxes anymore, so it's like, just take them for dirt cheap. They still work, just don't want them. It's like, alright, I'll happily take them. Alright, then all the B screws. And I call them B screws because they're labeled B1 through 4. They're just they're the screws that flank the USB port over here and then the power connector right down here, which is, I guess, currently off screen. I can't raise my camera any higher than what it is without, like, significantly, like, ruining my shot. So this is just kind of the shot that we get to live with. I guess I raised it up a little more. But a console this big is rather cumbersome. My setup isn't... I usually don't do consoles this big. I just felt it was a good way to diversify a little. Take a break from DS's and work on something a little different. Get some experience on consoles and components I'm not familiar with, like disk drives and HDMI ports and cooling fans, things of that sort. Okie dokie. Now I can start plopping everything in. The hard drive in its little caddy. 500 gigabyte Seagate. Very respectable. Get my T8 in. Or are these T10s? These are T10s. How about that? Oh, wait. Oh, I remember. I was looking at my notes on my computer. So this was one of the 2 consoles I purchased that had... I purchased a pair of consoles off somebody. They both spat E100 errors. Which an E100 error, to the best of my understanding, is like a disk drive authentication error. Which would imply that either the main board on the disk drive was damaged, or unplugged, I guess. Or that somebody swapped the hard drives without changing the daughter boards. Which in this case was the case. The disk drives were swapped. So I swapped both of those disk drives back and both consoles booted just fine. This one may have been the one that had a faulty disk drive to begin with, so the person thought, like, okay, I'll just swap the disk drives with a working one, and then I'll have one good Xbox. No, you can't quite do that. It's not that easy. I think I've said this a lot when I was taking this console apart, but I think it's worth kind of repeating, because it is kind of interesting. And then I guess instead of swapping the console back, they just gave up. And sold it for cheap. I guess I can't exactly blame them if you're frustrated. Not like these consoles are worth that much anyway. I hope they're worth a lot more than I'm thinking, because... well, I kind of invested into them. But, I mean... I think the way I see it is if I take some amount of knowledge and entertainment out of it. It's worth it to me to pay the small price. It'd be no different than going to a movie. Or renting a streaming service or getting a streaming service subscription for a month. But I'm a bit of a fiddler, so I don't think I could exactly get as much value out of a streaming service anymore than I used to. Like doing stuff, not sitting. Ironically, since I am sitting, and most of the stuff is involving sitting, but shut up. I am just about ready to test. Just gonna go ahead and put it in its bottom shell. Just checking the bottom shell, looks like it cleaned up pretty nicely. There is still a little bit of dust in there, but there's only really so much I can do with a hand clean. And it is infinitely better than what it was. A tiny bit of dust that I could spend an additional 5 minutes, 10 minutes trying to get rid of is just not really worth my time. Let's get everything plugged in. Give it a shot again, see if it still will read discs. If it won't read discs, then that is a problem. I did clean out the disk drive. I air gunned it, wiped off the laser, very carefully of course, and cleaned the roller off. There is still like a tiny bit of dust around this housing, but it shouldn't impact anything. I'll just try and wipe it off. In this case, it's worth me trying to clean. Because I would say that the discs going into your console are worth more if the area is cleaned versus the area below the metal shielding that doesn't usually see the light of day unless you very intentionally take it apart. There we go. Front panel, and then I'm ready to give it some power. This front piece looks pretty good. It's got a weird sort of texture on the power button. I don't know what that's about, but not expecting this thing to look perfect anyway. And that's my capture card plugged in. Here's the power cable. Fan should twitch. If I would have plugged the fan in. Okay. That's better. Oh, there's a little bit of dust on this still. This, like, dust is some pretty resilient stuff. Like, I had these plastic pieces submerged under hot soapy water. And I sloshed them around in that water quite a bit, but that dust persisted. Okay, I'm just gonna free the rest of my screws while I'm thinking about it. I just have all of the Wi-Fi board screws. The little baggies I don't really need anymore. Right. Batteries to power. Turned it on. Chimed on as expected. plug my controller into it. See what I get. Do I get a boot animation? I probably swapped out the hard drive as sort of like an initial error check. And yeah, it obviously is skipping the boot animation, so I'll have to add that later. Okay, it's going in the profile selection, so let me add no boot animation to my notes. Now sign in and then head over to the download queue. I don't show this since Xbox has no qualms about blasting my email out into the universe. Okay, this one looks like I did do a 1 gigabyte Ghost Recon test, but let's try it again. So it was able to read Ghost Recon Wildlands up to a gigabyte of install, which I'm going to do again. Just consistency. Ghost Recon's Wildlands. Ooh, fed in nicely. And sort of the same test I want to prove, I just want to watch Ghost Recon Wildlands install up to a gigabyte. There it is. It's going to prompt me to do a network update, but I'll have to decline it. I can sort of edit my paperwork to say that I cleaned it and it's ready for stress test. Update later. Yeah, in my notes it says the hard drive was removed, so I've definitely played some hard drive musical chairs because some of the consoles I got didn't have hard drives, and then I had to purchase some hard drives. So it's been a little bit of a fiesta. And it looks like it's going to easily install the first gigabyte of Ghost Recon Wildlands. Which, I mean, could just be initial layers of the Blu-ray disc. That doesn't mean that the deeper portions of the Blu-ray disc can or can't be read. That will be something I have to determine later when I can sort of make a comprehensive test using a bunch of different discs. I did purchase a bunch of Xbox discs, so I'll just have to see how those do. I'll worry about that later. Just getting the consoles to this point is good enough, so I don't have to worry about cleaning them anymore. But so far, it tested okay. It's at least doing the very bare minimum functions. Whether or not it can do anything more than that, well, again, will be determined later. Everything's unplugged, so now let me get the top metal shielding on and the remainder of the screws. I do need to get this little extension for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card screwed onto the disc, or screwed onto the top shell, as well as crimping in the antenna. And just to kind of hold this into place, just pop the Wi-Fi card in, then I can slot these little tiny tabs. And bend them back down. There we go. Pop that off because I'm gonna need to install that. Clip in the Wi-Fi card. Sort of peel back this front panel connector. And put the speaker in, but it will clip in very nicely. Just so that goes clip. Looks like I missed a couple spots when hand cleaning, but it's not the biggest deal. There we go. Okay. Now all of the studs. I'm noticing something. Some goobers on around this sort of like fan recess. Nothing crazy. Grab my T10. And the last two T8 screws for the little Wi-Fi card. Don't need my controller plugged in anymore. Top shell. It's one of the matte consoles, so it looks a lot better. It's not that glossy plastic. Little bit of stuff I missed. I'm going to try and get that out real quick. And if sitting in hot soapy water wasn't enough to clean it, only so much I can do. The consequence of cleaning it by hand is I can't get everything. I had like a really big ultrasonic cleaner that I could just pop these plastic pieces in, that would be a game changer. Now, I get as much as I can. Voila. All I need to do now is pop on the last side vent and the little clip that holds the two shell pieces together. Alright, just had to pick up some goobers that I missed. And the little recess for the USB port has some goobers in it as well. There we go. Voila. Again, infinitely better than what it was. Like, I'd be afraid of turning this thing on and it just overheating and shutting off when it's just packed with dust and debris. So that is it for this console. It's awaiting further stress testing, which I'm very excited to try and figure out. But also somewhat worried about me being able to figure out something comprehensive.